The Last Wave. All this and more coming up on This Week in Retro. Welcome to This Week in Retro for the week of January 18th. Welcome to This Week in Retro for the week of February 15th. Welcome to This Week in Retro for the week of February 22nd. Is the end of lockdown in sight? We'll be discussing that today, as well as this week's stories. All this and our community question of the week on This Week in Retro. Coming up on today's show.
High-resolution color graphics.
This land of high technology.
The revolution in technology that made the information age possible.
Those kids are not afraid of computers.
Running out of movie ideas. Struth, Aussie Arcade runs out of credits, mate.
Windows goes portable.
All this and more coming up on this week's show. Hopefully with Chris when he turns up. Up-to-date news for out-of-date tech. In September 2020, a man named John decided that he wanted to make another podcast because the 8 he was already running just didn't satisfy him enough. Hello, John.
Hello.
So John asked me and the mysterious enigma that is Duncan to join him, and we created This Week in Retro. That's right. That's what we did, isn't it? Yes, Duncan, that's what we did. For 22 episodes, we were but voices in the ether, and then Duncan discovered video, and our faces were revealed. The world was shocked to see two bald, middle-aged men staring back at them. Then, at episode 61, John and I had a son. Chris, the fake Australian, joined us to bring our flavour of retro from another corner of the world. And Chris was good, and Chris was living like a king thanks to his Roo Shoes sponsorship. Incidentally, John, who's your sponsor? Who would you be sponsored by?
I think probably Telly, a mouthpiece chemical spray.
There we go. But John became restless. John had other quests to fulfill, and so he departed, and we were joined on episode 77 by Dave, a Scotch man with two unprofessional cats. Hello, Dave.
Hi.
This Week in Retro continued until out of the blue on show 155, Chris was sacked for behaviour which can never be publicly disclosed. That left Neil and Dave for a further 62 shows, taking us up to today, show 217, 4 years after John birthed us, when I, for some unknown reason, invited a child into my house and came to the conclusion that little computer people had not in fact prepared me to look after another human being. And so, with my departure, the faces change again. But the show lives on, powered on by you, our twirlers, sharing your news, participating in the question of the week, keeping a crafty log week after week. And while you continue to do that, nothing really changes. This Week in Retro lives on, and I happen to know what's coming next will make it an even greater show than ever, as we'll discuss today. So, to celebrate, we have the ghosts of Christmas past, present and future. And hopefully one of those ghosts will turn up soon. Come on, Chris, where are you? It's episode 217, and 217 shows is enough for one man. Surely, chaps. Surely. Dave.
Does that mean I need to stop soon? Does that mean, are you sacking me when I get to 217 episodes? I am deeply sad to see you go, Neil. We speak every day in text, but we only really speak in person once a week, and that's going. Even more than your contribution to the show, I'll miss sitting down to talk to you once a week. I do get the reasons, I really do. I hoped it wouldn't come to this, but I felt for months that you were struggling to get the time together, and I thought this might be what happened. So I wasn't completely shocked when you said that you had to take this into consideration, and when you told me that you just couldn't manage it. I understand why. The cave has to be your focus. It's your full-time job, and you need to put in the hours, and you just need to find them from somewhere.
No, Dave. Family first. Family first.
Because
Dave is your family, Neil. Come on.
Because family first, you have to find it. You have to find for family. Find a family. I've lost my ability to speak. I'm so emotional. Because you have to find the time for family, that means you have to prioritise the cave above everything else. Yeah. So I understand why. Chris was going to announce something. He isn't here. We're not sure why. John has been so gracious to join us from school. He is literally in a classroom just now. He's scraped the time together to be on here. Thank you so much for coming on, John. It's really special of you to make the time for this. which meant that we couldn't wait for Chris. We don't know where Chris is, possibly a time thing. It's a great auspicious thing for his return to the show, because Chris is coming back full time. Chris will be our second presenter along with me, the two full-time hosts on the show, me and Chris, which is a huge relief for me. When I asked Chris if he'd come back, I didn't expect he would say yes, and he did.
Did
what
he?
a relief.
Where is he?
I know. Maybe he's changed his mind. Jason, of course, is looking like he will be the third host. I'm not sure what could go wrong with Jason now. It feels almost inevitable he'll be the third host, but he hasn't been on a show with the two of us yet. So next week, it should be the three of us, and assuming it goes okay, which I think it will.
I can't wait to listen. It's going to be...
that'll be the lineup.
I can't wait to be a listener and to hear the
I know,
new lineup.
It'll be different being a listener, won't it?
Yeah.
It'll be the three of us, and that will also give the opportunity for a week off when we need it for one of us. Yeah. All those different types of things, a bit of a better sharing of the load. It's going to be a new era for us. I'm really looking forward to it. We'll be doing things. We'll be trying to push the show forward. It'll be great to have an American back on as well, because it was always the ethos at the start of it was that it was British and American together to try and represent different spheres of the retro world. So it'll be great to have Jason on there. Jason is actually, I don't think people realize that, Jason's actually a journalist. He's very, very knowledgeable. He's going to bring a huge amount of knowledge to the podcast. So it's going to be absolutely fantastic. But Neil, thank you for everything. It has been... Oh, I'm getting emotional now. I mustn't do this. It's been wonderful over the past 4 years with you, starting off as a listener and then coming onto the show. I'm so sad you're leaving, but I mean, I'll still speak to you every day.
And yes, you've all graciously left the door open for me to pop back in and be a guest whenever I want. So that's lovely. Yeah. And I must ask John, who's sitting there very patiently, is John frozen? I think John's frozen.
He's fallen asleep.
John's video has frozen with his eyes closed. Can you hear us, John? Are you still there?
He's gone orange, which means there's a problem with his connection.
We've lost both John and Chris. Oh, I was going to ask John all about life after this week in retro. I wanted to hear what retirement was like for John. John's gone offline. We'll come back to John. What a show we had lined up, Dave.
Neil, this is turning into you leaving has turned into an absolute disaster.
The show is fighting back.
Torpedoed the show. You've ruined it. I don't know what kind of show people are going to get today. We've got 50% of the hosts currently missing.
I don't think it matters too much. We'll just soldier on.
We will soldier on. Chris had to take some time out, and he's now over that. I'm sure he'll tell us. Here comes John back. Welcome back, John.
Hello, John.
Sorry, my school internet connection went down, and so I'm joining you via my iPhone's hotspot.
Nice. You froze with your eyes shut. We thought you'd just fallen asleep.
Well, it might have been a little bit of that as well. I'm not gonna lie.
An Edwin special.
I was going to ask you, John, about life after this week in retro. What was it like for you when you gave up the show? What did you do with all that extra free time?
You know, it was really not so much what I did with the extra free time. It was how much I was able to sleep more in the morning. Because, as you know, we were recording this show between 5 and 6 a.m. my time originally. And it was hard for me to be my
Robot
normal...
John with your connection.
No.
Have you got Robot John as well, Dave?
Oh, no.
It sounds like
viewers won't get the viewers will get the full crystal clear John experience.
It sounds like he's fallen into a digital black hole.
Okay. What about now?
There he is.
Wonderful.
Okay. I'm sorry, guys. When we started doing the show, I thought, waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning on a Monday, that'll be fine. That'll be fine. And it turns out I was not able to be my sort of chipper, buoyant self all the time at that time in the mornings. And, after 7 or 8 months, it just started wearing me down. And I realized that because Neil, International Man of Mystery, he's busy all the time. That's the only time he had. And so it was nothing to do with my dislike of continuing the show as much as it was a timing issue where I just wasn't able to give my all to the task at hand, as it were. Yeah.
And did you enjoy? Was it a relief? Did you enjoy when you left the show? Did you become a regular listener? What did you do?
It was a relief because I I felt, again, I wasn't able to, I sort of had to fake being me, which you kind of have to do when you're up at 5 o'clock in the morning, no matter what your station is in life. And so, when I left, it was fun. We got great. This is fantastic. It was a relief to me because I was able to enjoy the show, much like you will, Neil, as a listener, without the added pressure of trying to be funny and interesting and entertaining at the same time.
Yeah.
It does come naturally to you, though.
Oh, it doesn't come naturally to us introverts. We do have to try. But
I should point out that for people who don't know, John has been doing a podcast now for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
Everything Amiga on the Amigos Retro Gaming thing. So if you do want to hear John, there is 10 years of a back catalogue of his wonderful chat with my friend Aaron, who is fantastic on podcasts, who comes on this show at Christmas time. So there is a back catalogue there of John, and every week reviewing a new Amiga game and all the Amiga news of the week. It's out there. If you've not a listener of that, give it a try. You'll love it.
The latest is episode 500, a 4-hour special.
That's right. That's right. We covered a game that sums up me and Aaron's love of the Amiga. That's right. It's the impenetrable Space Shim Shuttle. And Neil, did you ever play Shuttle back in the day?
That's the one that was published by Virgin over here, I think.
That's right.
Wasn't it?
That's right.
Great big sort of control panel that it won't even fit on one screen. You have to scroll around to see all the dials and controls on it. Yeah, that's right up my street, John. That's my kind of game.
I know it is. And so if you like, thanks for the plug, Dave. Yeah, Amigos, we enjoy doing Amigos. It is I've scrolled back not only from this week in retro, but also the literally 4 other shows I was doing at the same time. Because a couple of years ago, I actually entered into the deacon formation program in the Roman Catholic Church. That's right. I'm on my way to becoming a clergyman.
I understand if you weren't married, you'd be eligible to become Pope.
I was next in line until they found that out.
Yeah. So. But now you're rooting for Father Dougal, I understand.
That's right. I'm all in for Dougal.
How hard can it be, Ted?
We have had a message from Chris. He will be joining us in a few minutes. He was an hour out of kilter with our timing. So
a scheduling error, possibly not Chris's fault.
Yeah.
Possibly not Chris's fault.
And just reflecting on something John said there and what Chris is doing right now. Part of the what prompted me to leave was talking about bettering the show by bringing Jason in, for example. Not necessarily because of Jason. We were talking about just finding someone more international to join us. And that would mean moving times about me trying to record at different times of day or on a Monday. And John, you know how limited my time is. And as soon as we started talking about, well, could you do it this time this week and this time that week? I just thought I just need to find my focus on the cave. I can't be doing that.
That's right.
So, that was sort of not the thing, but the straw that broke the camel's back. I think that just made me go, do you know what? I just need to step aside and let Chris and Jason and Dave really run with this. And the listeners will benefit from all of those insights without me holding things up. So that's fantastic. You need to find someone in Japan now.
We absolutely we could move Chris to Japan. The time zones are incredibly difficult now. We've got Jason who will be getting up early in the morning and Chris recording late at night so that I can be there in the middle of the day. Anyway, how has your week been, Neil?
Oh, it's been good. We had a patron day at the cave this weekend, and I'm gonna spoil this for Lee. More Fun Making It. Lee was there, who does his podcast, More Fun Talking Retro. What's it called? More Fun
Talking, I think.
More Fun Talking.
It is now.
And he said, Neil, why don't you come on my podcast next week and we can announce you as my new co-host. But I couldn't. That would be evil. I couldn't. So it was nice to catch up with Lee and everyone else who came along. And we didn't have a guest speaker this weekend. We just had a big open day. Richard showing off the Mr. Multi-System 2. So that video will be up by the time this show goes out. Fantastic. Really well received by everyone who saw it. And showing everyone the garage project we're working on. So just a really nice chilled out day. Yeah. How about you, Dave?
Well, I've been doing some shopping. and I've got a few things. This has arrived. A few things just arrived just recently.
Hang on, Dave. Is that A-grade stock?
Well, supposedly, but it's absolutely flawless. It's perfect. It was supposedly reduced because it was damaged, and I wouldn't have bought it otherwise because it's quite expensive. This is Golden Axe on vinyl.
Yeah.
Haven't opened it yet. It just arrived. Later on, I'm going to be building flat pack furniture, and I'll put this on for it. I'm really looking forward. I love the Golden Axe music. It's so good.
So the publishers announced a load of B-grade stock that they wanted to sell at a good price. I went on there, and Golden Axe had sold out by the time I got there, Dave, so there couldn't have been many. There was still some Streets of Rage to be bought, but Golden Axe was gone.
And I've also bought this. Grand Scramble. I had this as a kid. I was so good at it, I managed to get the score to loop. I think it shows HHH if you do that. I don't know if that meant it was a really easy game or I was good at it. But the other thing I got, Neil, is this. Tell me what this is, Neil.
This is the reloaded Harrier Attack that uses the extra features of the Amstrad CPC Plus machines on cartridge.
It arrived, all three of those things arrived within half an hour of us recording. So we have this, which is an actual cartridge it'll go in my GX 4000. And Harrier Attack is a special game for you, Neil. Why is it special?
Well, it's one of the first games I played. It came in the Amstrad pack, and it is based on Scramble. So there you go.
So this is an upgraded one, upgraded graphics and so on. It's wonderful to get that. You can buy it on eBay. I'll get Duncan to put a link in eBay. The guy's done a limited run of these, so thank you very much for doing this. But you can get it on eBay. It just arrived a few minutes ago. I'm talking about things that have just arrived. Chris isn't almost here, so he'll be on soon.
He hasn't got his ears in yet, so say whatever you like about him.
This week, I enjoyed something immensely on Saturday night for me, late on Saturday night, which was the International Computer Club. And I enjoyed watching a man try... Well, what were you doing, Boat?
Well, I had a grand plan, Dave.
I'm calling you Boat now, not John, because of how daft it was.
That's okay. I was thinking I have nothing to offer the International Computer Club.
Nonsense.
These are men among men, and I am a mere child in terms of my knowledge.
Nonsense.
But what I can do is drink a whole bunch of booze. And so what I thought of is I was like, boy, I'm going to get ChatGPT to write a menu of classic computer-inspired cocktails. Okay. And I was like, okay. And so I opened up the old liquor cabinet, and I was like, these are the ingredients that I have.
Which one's the most beige?
No, Neil.
And things started a little bit rough when the first one I believe was some sort of Amstrad homage, and it had me fill up half a cup of amaretto with a little bit of peach schnapps floating on the top.
God, no.
And I was like, you know what? That's maybe it's just, it's getting the bugs worked out of its system. So I drank that one because the idea was in between each talk, I would mix another cocktail live on the air and drink it during that talk. Okay.
The ICC is it's a thing that the Amigos do, and they bring anyone can show up to it and do a talk for 5, 15, half an hour if you're happy coding on whatever you like to do. And while this was happening, John was in his boat persona entertaining us.
That's right. And so and that one was okay. I survived the first one. The second one though was a Model M Martini, okay, which I thought was a pretty clever name, And so I got and they're like, pour in some, and there were no amounts. It was just, mix these things together. And so I was like, okay, gin, and I have my plastic bottle, bottom of the rung liquor store gin. And then I poured in some vermouth. I don't know how much. And then they were like, and then add olive brine. And I was like, okay.
How much did you add? I watched you do it, and I thought, what's he doing?
And so I had my olive brine, and the only olives that I had were blue cheese stuffed olives. So popped open the top, poured about half the brine in there, gave it the James Bond shake. And I can tell you, about T-20 after that went down, after the first sip, I was done with the ICC. And I was sort of done with life at that point.
I was watching it and I could see John's little face on it, because you can see everyone there sometimes. See John's little face. And he just looked like he wanted to go to his bed. He didn't look very well at all. I was worried about you. Cause I knew you were coming on this. I thought, is he going to be too ill to be on this? Because I'm looking at Discord, on your Amigos Discord yesterday, saying, John hasn't said anything yet. John hasn't said anything. Is he ill? Is he alive?
Yeah, I had to take to the bed for a few hours, and just kind of, I think that my stomach actually pickled with so much olive brine. And then the blue cheese leavings that were in there too didn't help. And
this
that was
is what happens when you leave This Week in Retro, is it? This is the life I've got to look forward to.
That's right. That's right. Before you know it, you'll be upside down in a ditch drinking old olive brine.
Yeah.
So, lessons were learned. Do not trust AI to make your cocktails, I think is number one. There are some things best left to the humans, even in this day and age.
Yeah, if you want to see ICC, including John punishing himself, then Duncan will put a link in the show notes. Absolutely amazing. Guess who's joined us?
It's Chris. Also a link in the show notes to my new Kickstarter, Digital Cocktails with AI involved in cocktail. Coming soon. Back it now.
Should we do a sync
Picture
clap
of a bartender with 8 fingers? It'll be great.
Should we do a sync clap for Duncan now? Because we do it before the viewers see it. So this time,
Okay.
they can see a sync clap. Behind the scenes, real stuff that happens.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, yeah, we
Yes.
got Chris. We got-
Okay, because it's not showing anything on the waveform. So okay, if you're hearing me, you're hearing me.
Oh, I can
Yeah.
see your waveform.
Is it this microphone? Let's do another behind the scenes thing. We have to stroke our mics. Is it this one?
Yes, it is.
Right,
It is.
yes,
It is.
Fantastic.
And I
Welcome
would
on, Chris.
say-
That's
Chris,
my job done. Bye, everyone.
we've done the whole Neil's leaving thing, and I've announced that you're coming back on. I don't know if you want to say anything about that now or just say hello.
We can save it for next week. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine. And sorry I'm late. I think there was a bit of confusion with the time zones, but there we go.
Yeah.
So I'm just going
Important
to
thing is you're here. Welcome back.
a note for Duncan. Don't even attempt to edit this out, Duncan. Just let them have it as it happens. It's fine.
The show's in good hands.
Oh, I'll miss this,
dear.
Neil. Patrons know that once a year they get to see some of the nonsense that happens in the outtakes when we buckle into laughter. So everyone gets to see a little bit of it this week. Shall we go on with it, Neil? Shall we go on with the
I've
show?
just got one more observation since Chris hasn't been a regular. Chris, you're letting your display standards slip there. I'm seeing wonky pictures. I'm seeing piles of things behind you.
Don't even get me.
Lady.
My headphones aren't even staying in. These are my wife's because I couldn't find mine. But everything will be fine by next week. Actually, it won't because I'll be in a different room next week. But anyway, it's all good.
Good, right.
It's all good.
Let's go to our first story.
Professional.
Right, I'm just going to shut the door before I go into this. Hold on.
Shut that door. That wasn't even close to it. Can you do it, Chris? Shut that door.
Oh, no. Shut the door. No, who was it? It was
Stu Francis. Was it Stu Francis?
Was it Stu Francis?
Was it? I don't know.
I'm thinking of what's his face? Phantom of the Opera. Well, I don't know why.
Frank Spencer.
Frank Spencer. It wasn't him, was it?
He played Phantom of the Opera.
No, he did, yes, but he didn't do the shut that door.
That's who I think of when I think Phantom of the Opera. The Phantom of the Opera is Frank Spencer.
Michael
Anyway.
Crawford.
Really? I think about the
Michael
guy
Crawford.
from Hello Dolly. What's his name? Michael Crawford?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Riverdance. I'm doing Riverdance right now.
Right. Shall I go into the story? Okay.
I'd rather talk about Phantom of the Opera.
I want to talk about Condor Man. Anyway.
One of my favourite games of all time is, can you guess?
Ultima 6.
The other one.
Ultima 7.
Outrun on the arcade, my favourite RPG, not least because it's one of the few games I can actually complete on a single credit, but also because of how it makes you feel. We've spoken about this before, I think, when Chris was on the show before. It's perhaps the first game that's made us feel cool, and we do have Outrun in the arcade archive. And when I was driving there just yesterday for the event we had, there was some kind of car show going on because I saw two convertible Ferraris come past me the other way, looking awesome. One was red, one was, I think, black, but it's always got to be a red Ferrari for me, and that looked lovely. And it was cool, but it wasn't Outrun cool. It wasn't Outrun. I was thinking, I'm going the other way. I'm going to an Outrun arcade machine, and I'm cooler than you. Nothing to do with the fact that I couldn't afford a real Ferrari in a million years. But yeah, Outrun is cooler than a real Ferrari, I think. And Outrun is a very simple premise. You drive from A to B, you don't crash. That's it. And it's said that when Yu Suzuki designed the game, who also created which game, Dave, the most influential game of all time?
Shenmue.
Is that, in your opinion, the most influential game of all time?
Well, yeah. We covered this the other week.
Okay. So
There's no
when
argument.
he designed the game, he was inspired by a road trip that he took to Europe. And also the original concept of the game was based on that movie starring Burt Reynolds with his hairy chest, The Cannonball Run. Hence why a recent remake of the Outrun engine is called Cannonball. Now, that was in 1986 when the game came out. But now, 39 years later, Michael Bay is producing Outrun, the movie. Yes, Universal presents, not US Gold presents. The movie of the game inspired by a movie. Or perhaps not. Perhaps Michael Bay was inspired by the Amiga port. Either way, they're making the movie, and I'd guess it's probably slated for 2026 to coincide with the 40th anniversary, perhaps, but details are quite scarce at the moment. Now, Michael Bay is the director best known for his explosive action films. What's the first film you think of when I say Michael
Transformers.
Bay? Transformers, yeah.
Yeah.
Robots in disguise. Yeah.
He also did Armageddon and Pearl Harbor. And so he's the director. Sydney Sweeney is producing the film. Here's a fun fact. Sydney Sweeney, you may not know about her. She's a car nut who's restored a 1969 Ford Bronco and a 1965 Ford Mustang, apparently. So I think that's got to be a good sign. You know, someone who is a car enthusiast working on a movie in which surely the car is going to be the star in Outrun. It has to be. Jason Rothwell is writing the script, which I imagine reads left, right, left, left, checkpoint. That's got to be it. That script was so good, John's dropped off again, but hopefully he'll be back. The whole thing is being overseen by Sega president Shuji Utsumi. So I don't know how much overseeing he will actually do, but no doubt he'll have a big red button he can press if he doesn't like it.
Yeah.
Universal are the studio fronting it, and they do have history in making video game adaptations, including Street Fighter and Doom. And you may recall that Street Fighter movie adaptation then spawned Street Fighter, the movie, the video game. So you had the video game based on the movie, based on the game. And that was the Street Fighter game with digitized sprites, including Van Damme was in it, wasn't he? And Kylie Minogue, they were characters in there. You know Kylie, don't you, Chris?
Yeah, she's just down the road from me. Yeah, we catch up all the time.
Is she one of your neighbours?
She is indeed.
Speaking of which, Wolf from Gladiators called me, Chris. He said he wants his video back. He wants his. I can't believe he made your leaving video. And come back. Could we possibly get Outrun, the movie, the video game, off of the back of this? Could it inspire a whole new round of Outrun games? Perhaps, maybe. And what would an Outrun movie even be about? You know, will it capture the style and the feeling of the open road in the way the original game did? Is the movie even for us oldies who remember the game, or is it just for a whole new generation? Is it just a cool name and attached to Sega, and that's enough to make a film around for a new generation? I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see what merchandise, what spin-offs, what games come out of this project. Guys, what are your thoughts? Are you feeling positive about this? Are you feeling cynical? Who wants to go first?
I do. I'm positive. I actually am. There's a film in the cinemas just now, Minecraft, the movie. Critics thought it was rubbish, but loads of people are having lots of fun watching it. And we mustn't forget that movies are for fun. They're a bit of escapism. Loads of kids are having lots of fun. Never mind wrecking the place with popcorn and so on. That to one side. It's a fun movie. So this could be a fun movie. There were loads of road trip movies in the 70s and 80s, and they're just good fun escapism movies. They're just entertaining for a couple of hours, and that's it. Maybe it is time to bring them back. Sydney Sweeney is certainly qualified for the role. Her expertise in cars. Every film I've seen her in, she's actually been a good actor, not just in there because she looks incredibly attractive, but she's actually a good actor. So if they can make this a nice, fun, light-hearted movie, while I'm sure the critics won't be too pleased, it'll be a wonderful bit of fun for a couple of hours. And the film I want them to emulate or ape here is Every Which Way But Loose. So put Sydney Sweeney in an orangutan outfit.
Was that Clyde? Was that the orangutan in that one?
Yeah, Clyde.
Yes,
Clyde.
That's a great film. Clint Eastwood.
Yeah. Good God. I mean, there's got to be explosions, surely, but I don't remember any.
Michael Bay.
Maybe he should have done Afterburner. That might have been better suited to him, or Space Harrier. Maybe they'll come next. Yeah. All right, Chris, I've got a feeling you'll have something to say on the matter.
You might have to give me a timer or just jump in and tell me to stop because we don't have time to carry on. Because plenty to say on this topic. Outrun, classic game. We both love it, Neil. And of course, we're both aware that one of the inspirations was Cannibal Run. So you've quite rightly pointed out you've already got a movie for the game. So do we need a movie about the game about the movie? Yes. And of course, Cannibal Run itself. Yeah, I think you're right. We do, Dave. Some people are not aware that it was actually based on a real-life illegal race from one side of America to another, also was the US Express, and the Gumball Rally came later because there was another movie that came out before Cannibal Run called Gumball, but basically it's inspired by the original Cannibal Run. Brock Yates was the event organizer. You'd know this because obviously you've all read Sunday Driver by Brock Yates, as well as Cannibal by Brock Yates, both fantastic books. If you're into this, gives you all the history, and of course, Brock Yates, the event organizer, was in the movie as the event organizer, as was his wife, was also in the movie as well. So nice bit of trivia for you. Those were kind of also inspired by 70s classic movies such as Vanishing Point and Two Lane Blacktop. Sure you've all watched those. And if you get into all of this history, you'll probably need to read The Driver by Alex Roy. So that was a more recent attempt. I say recent, it's quite old now, but another recent attempt at breaking the Transamerica record. And then if you read that, then you're definitely going to get your hands on 32 hours, 7 minutes, which is a documentary about Alex Roy's attempt to break the Transamerica record. So obviously there's plenty of meat to form a decent movie about this kind of event. It's a coast to coast, just top down on the car, pedal to the metal and off you go. But I think it's kind of already been done. And it's a movie not many people talk about. And I think it was done very well and is a future cult classic. And that is the movie Need for Speed. Which is, of course, it kind of got lost because people thought it was just going to be a copy of the Fast and Furious franchise, and it really wasn't. And they purposely harked back to, they didn't want to use CGI, they wanted to use stunt drivers and stunt vehicles and rigs and stuff like that, and practical effects. And it's a fantastic movie with a great storyline, and it's not hindered by the fact that it's tied to a game franchise at all. If you haven't seen it and you're into car movies, watch Need for Speed. Do you think maybe, Chris, the very fact that it was tied to a video game name has hindered it somewhat? Do you think? I think so. And probably because it was tied to a modern video game franchise. So I think maybe Outrun has got more chance to succeed because a lot of people won't be familiar necessarily with Outrun, the original, in terms of, current generation moviegoers. People like us, we're going to go for the nostalgia, but there's also this new generation that will go just because it's a movie that hopefully will be good. So maybe it does stand more of a chance, but being Michael Bay, I don't want to dump on it because at the end of the day, I don't have high hopes, and therefore I think I'll be pleasantly surprised, but I do think it will be a messy CGI nightmare.
Yeah. Dave?
I hope not. I hope they don't use CGI. I hope they've maybe learned that from the Fast and Furious, which is a bit of fun as well, but I lost the franchise about 3 or 4 films in. It's nonsense what happens in it. It's absolutely ridiculous. There's no sense of peril because nothing's realistic. So hopefully they'll learn from that, especially with Sydney Sweeney involved, who likes her cars. There'll be more about the cars. But I did have something to say which I've now forgotten. Oh, yes, it is. Outrun is a blank slate more than Need for Speed is. The actual game Outrun, you don't know, you're playing the game, you don't know why they're racing other than they're racing. So they can put that story in. And as long as they don't turn it away from what it really is, they've got a blank slate and they can tell the story that they want to.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. We joke, what is the script? What would the story of Outrun be? But actually, that's a strength. It means they can just fill in the blanks however they want. On the Need for Speed movie, I'm just seeing here that it did actually gross quite well on release. So it's not like using that name held it back in any way. I was just thinking longer term as a cult classic, perhaps it would put certain people off if they thought, it's just a video game movie, when actually Chris is telling us, well, the truth is actually it's a really good
it's a fantastic movie
or race movie in its own right. So I will check that out. Yeah. So we will see what is going to happen with the Outrun movie. No release date as of yet, just an announcement. And it'll be interesting to see if other Sega franchises follow. Will there be a Golden Axe movie, a Space Harrier movie?
Golden Axe. Golden Axe is based in Conan the Barbarian. So yeah.
There's already the Sonic movie, of course, so it's not like Outrun is the first Sega movie coming out of nowhere. But Sonic, of course, has a bit more of a backstory and a bit more meat on the bone to work with.
Give us this movie.
Dave's holding up his Golden Axe
record.
The Golden Axe movie.
John will not be returning.
Yes, John has dropped off. John, thank you so much, John, for joining us as best you could from what was he in, the music room where he teaches? It looked like
it's his classroom. John is a teacher. He is a band teacher, I think, what they call him in the United States of America, which does as a music teacher.
And
he loves it. He absolutely loves his job. He does so well with him as well. But he was able to join us, but now he's banned.
Now he's banned. Thank you, John, for joining us. It was lovely to see him while we did. And lovely to see you too as well, Chris. And
lovely to see you too.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you. To see you.
See you. Nice.
Should we get to our sponsor slot?
Yeah. We are sponsored this week, thank you very much, by PCB Way. PCB Way are a fabrication company based in China who produce PCBs, of course, there's a name, but they also do CNC machining. They will do 3D printing. They'll even print your PCBs and make them and then put the little bits of sawdust, the tiny bits of chicken feed on there for you so that you don't have to do that ridiculous soldering with the 503, whatever it happens to be on there. They also have their shared projects library where you can find something to inspire you. I don't know if any of you are watching this thinking, I want to do my first bit of soldering. Well, if you do want to do your first bit of soldering, first of all, it's easier than you think. The solder mask is magic. It helps you work. And you can go to the projects library and find something nice and easy and get stuck in.
My news feeds must have known that I was coming back on the show because they actually fed me some quite interesting stuff in recent days. And one of the things was, it was basically the fact that what piqued my attention was the fact that it was being covered by a mainstream TV channel program.
Hang on. You can't go into this story saying my news feed was really good this week and then cover a story that you submitted yourself, Chris.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It came into my news feed. Look, I used my alter ego. This is 9110 that Dave keeps forgetting is actually me. But
to be fair, it was heavily upvoted in the subreddit, so you're justified. You're vindicated.
Yeah, I was about to say, look, it's an Australian story, and isn't it great that I'm finally covering the Australian scene?
Great to have an Australian back
at last. Yeah, great to have a fake Australian back. And yeah, it did get 21 upvotes, as Dave said. So that's why I'm covering the story I submitted. But yeah, the newsfeed gave it to me, and it was on mainstream media. It was on A Current Affair, which I think is Channel 9. And unfortunately, it's a bit of a sad story. It's about an arcade that's about to close its doors right here in Australia. And the arcade is called One Up Arcade, obviously not to be confused with Arcade One Up, no affiliation whatsoever. It's a massive arcade. Go on, Neil.
We know them as One Down Arcade up here, but yeah, carry on.
One Down. Oh dear. Oh, it's all going to come back now, isn't it? Now I've remembered why I left the show. Anyway, Carl, it's going to be hard to get back into my first story, isn't it? So One Up Arcade is a massive arcade in Brisbane. on the east coast of Australia. It's actually touted as Australia's biggest arcade collection, with over 200 arcade machines, as well as a healthy number of pinball machines as well. Many of the games are listed on their website. I don't think their website is a complete list. In fact, it can't be, because there's not 200 on there. But I'll put the links in the show notes so you can have a look at the list. And they clearly lean towards, from the titles I'm seeing, the classics from the 80s and quite a lot into the 90s. Quite a lot of games are from the 90s. Pac-Man's in there, of course. Super Hang-On, Outrun, as we've already discussed on the show already today. And then you get a lot into the Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat era, and there's lots of Neo Geo titles in there as well. And even some even more modern stuff like Aliens Extermination, which is from 2006.
You mentioned they have a healthy number of pinball machines. I'd just like to point out a healthy number of pinball machines is 1. That is a healthy number.
No,
Dave's saying 0.
Yeah, they have an unhealthy number of pinball machines. I love pinball machines, but nobody says they're reliable.
It's not healthy.
Oh, really?
Like
maybe that's why they're shutting their doors. Too many pinball machines. I actually wish I'd lived closer. I mean, for me to visit is a bit like, me saying to Neil, "Hey, Neil, I've heard there's a great arcade in Moscow. Are you going to check it out?" Because that's the distance involved, right? But if I were to visit, it would have to be soon, because they're basically going to close their doors in May this year. It's run by collector Stephen Holmes, and the reason for closing, according to the way it's being covered in the media, it doesn't seem to be that the place has failed, in inverted commas. They seem to have customers, and the collection is very highly regarded. It's simply that they're being forced to move venue, and it's the act of moving that isn't financially viable, and so he's basically chosen to hang up his hat.
Is this news? Is he looking for help, or is the decision being made? Is he trying to drum up support, or is he saying that's it, we're closing our doors?
The way the news story was put across is they're closing their doors. They have to close their doors anyway, because they've got to change venue, and he's not going to be the one to do it. He's hoping somebody else will take on the collection, and that they can then move it and maybe start a similar venue along with it. That's his actual hope. So to me, it seems very sad that in a time when retro game is in vogue, and I'm going to use that rather than booming. I think the weird global event that we all went through a few years ago definitely gave it an abnormal peak, and I maybe it's plateaued a little bit, but it's certainly in vogue. And the way I say that is, it's not just what I'm now recognizing is it's not just our generation that are doing it for the nostalgia or the historical interest, but there's this whole new generation of younger gamers that are just finding old games fun to play. And in fact, a lot of the footage that you see in the news item, if you look at the YouTube link, it's young kids playing these old arcade games, and they're having a great time. And I see that kind of thing go on quite regularly. I'm sure you do at the Cave as well, Neil, when you have the young visitors. So actually, Neil, on that topic, can I throw to you, as a venue operator, what do you see as the challenges? And from the games list that they've got there, is there anything that you want me to try and fit in a suitcase to bring over if he sells off the whole collection?
All of them. All of them up to about 1993. That keeps me happy. Yeah. As a venue, I think a lot of us have a dream of running an arcade, and it's an absolutely bonkers thing to try and take on. We've got an arcade at the Retro Collective, but we don't call it an arcade. Okay, it's called the Arcade Archive, but we refer to it as a museum. And we do that to try and set the expectation before people come. And we do that because it's genuinely our mission, just as it is in the Cave, to preserve as many of those arcade machines as possible. And also because we want to educate people about the history of the machines. So that's what we're working really hard on. And anyone who's been will say, okay, there's a little bit of that at the moment, but that's what we've always tried to push. And just this week, we've taken a delivery of a huge amount of signage assembly that we can put on the ceiling above all the machines. So every single machine will have an illuminated sign above it telling the history of each arcade machine. And the reason for that is because education
we want people to have something to look up to.
Exactly. We want to enlighten them. We want them to look up to it. And education is valuable to people. So we want people when they come to feel that they've learned something and that they've got value for money for their trip. It's £15 to come into the arcade. That's not cheap. And that should represent a good morning or an afternoon for your money. And you should come away feeling like you've learned something and you've got value for money. And education is a big part of that. So I'm telling you this because that was our ethos from the outset. We never thought it would be viable to just open an arcade and expect it to be profitable. It has to have something to elevate it. It has to have that educational element. It has to have the preservation element, the YouTube element. And now the big project that we're doing is to create this workshop, which will film arcade restorations in. That's a huge part of growing the arcade and the cave. And a huge part of showing people how much we care about all of this stuff. And that in turn encourages visits, and that in turn encourages support. So there's this big circle of preservation and sharing that we're trying to go round and round. And if we just said, here's an arcade, come and play games, and maybe chucked a few LCD screens in there. This is, by the way, this is not representative of the Australian one. This is just in general. If we just said, here's an arcade, there's some LCD screens, there's a few Pandora's boxes in there. It's a bit janky. You know, people are not going to go away feeling like they've had a good experience. They could have just fired up an emulator at home. So there's a lot to think about. It's completely bananas to just want to open an arcade. And I'm not surprised in the least that these guys are struggling to run an arcade. You know, you think about the cost of running 200 machines, the space it takes up, the service charges, the rent. It's no surprise that having to go to a new place he's probably got a good deal where he is. But anywhere that's at the market rate that can handle 200 arcade machines, it's going to be big and it's going to cost a lot of money. So, you know, don't destroy your bank account just trying to keep that dream alive. If it doesn't make sense, find another way. So it sounds like they're doing the right thing.
Yeah, fair enough. Dave, what about yourself? Is there anything like this in your area, or a barcade or anything? And my big question is, do you visit them?
No, I don't know of anything nearby that isn't a barcade type place with the 16:9 flat screens and so on. And I want to stand up for them a bit. I do want to say that they're fun, that they have a purpose, and there's a reason to go to that pub instead of a different pub because it's got these arcade machines. That would be the reason to go. However, they're not a reason for you to leave the house to go to those places. They're a reason to go there instead of somewhere else when you're already going out. But I do want to say we shouldn't be gatekeeping and snobbery about these things. They're still fun to play. It's still fun to play these games. Not everyone has an emulator. Not everyone wants to have an emulation thing set up in their house. So it is still fun to play these things, and they have their place. If you're in the centre of town and you have a pub and you want something to distinguish yourself from other pubs, then putting a few of these in is a good way to do it. And you can get them fairly cheap. You can get a built-in thing hanging off the wall with a decent controller on it, and that's a good way of doing it. But it's nothing like going to the Arcade Archive. The nearest one to me that I know of is down in Leeds, and it's Arcade Club, and that is supposedly amazing, and I do want to go there. However, it's an 8-hour round trip in the car, so it's not something I could do in one day. I wouldn't want to drive 4 hours, spend 4, 5, 6 hours in there, and then drive home knackered on the same day. So it means staying overnight, and of course staying overnight means paying for a hotel room and someone coming to feed the cats, and then losing 2 days and so on. So it's a bit more difficult for me to visit. It does make me wonder, though, if there are too many arcades, if they're only sustainable through sheer force of will against market forces, as if what they're doing with these arcades is not just a normal business venture to make profit. It's a business venture which doesn't make profit, and it has to go on the backs of people like Neil and Holly and all the other people involved to get something to work that shouldn't, by normal business terms, work. Because when we're talking about, we talked a few weeks ago about Barcadia in Norwich, which sadly has not reopened. So it looks as if it's not going to reopen. And that, for nostalgia nerd Peter, must have been a huge labour of love, a lot of money gone in, and he's struggling. It doesn't look as if it's going to stay open. And it's a shame. He had real arcade machines in there. It must be so difficult to do this. So it's a shame, because they're magical realms. When you step into an arcade, you hear the noise in the background as it all blends in together. It's a different place than anywhere else you can go. They're a magical place, and there's nothing else like them. It takes me back to when I was a kid in St Anne's, going into the pier or Blackpool and all the rest of it. There's nothing else like these places, and it's a real shame if they're closing down. I hope we reach an equilibrium where there's enough that survive that people can go.
Yeah, no, that's very good points. I like the stuff you guys have brung up because it really makes me grateful for the arcades. Sorry, I'll call them barcades that we've got here in Perth. And I get the impression this one in Brisbane is all original kit. I think I've not been there because it's the other side of the country, but from the footage I've seen, it's original kit. And where there are LCDs, it's because it's a modern game, I think, Neil?
Yeah, well, just Barcade is a perfect example of you're not just opening an arcade. You're you're bringing something else to give people an experience. In that example, you're not generally not paying for a ticket to go in there, but you're running your business on the food and the drink, and the arcades are the attraction. So there always has to be a secondary element to an arcade for it to be successful. And I don't know, did the one in Brisbane or was it in Brisbane, the one that's closing down? No, where was it?
Brisbane. I was looking at their website. I couldn't see that they offer drinks and stuff. I don't know if they're a licensed venue or something. Maybe, yeah. Yeah,
I think it's Australia, so you have to offer drinks everywhere.
I think
I think this was the thing of this arcade was like Arcade Club in Leeds or like the Galloping Ghost and so on, American. So the thing for this one was it was a full on proper arcade,
the biggest and the best. Okay,
yeah. But yeah, as I was about to say, the ones that we've got here in Perth are fantastic, and they have original kit. I think there's one that I know of that has a mix of original and let's call them modern emulated, whatever. There's a couple of flat screens that you can see in there. But other than that, especially the main ones I'm thinking of, which have 3 venues, this particular business, they're a pub, they do great food, and they are original kits. They're all original machines. They've just done the tap card for payment. That's all the only modification to them. So it's really good, including right back to things like Pong and original Space Invaders, Asteroids, Star Wars cabs, all that kind of stuff. They're great. They're great. Going back to the one in Brisbane, I really hope that collection can continue in some way. And if it does, and if I'm ever over there, I'll definitely take the time to check it out. And it's really made me think because, with a story like this, I think I want to end it with a global call to action, because I think it's pointless us sitting here and saying, yes, this is very sad seeing a venue like this close down. But if we, the target audience, are not using these places, then far out, they're going to struggle, right? We're their key audience. I love joining high score challenges in the online groups that I'm on. So why is it that I was hesitant to sign up for the Mortal Kombat 2 competition that's coming up soon in one of my local barcades? So on the back of knowing I was going to cover this story, I've actually fixed that. I've bought myself a ticket. I'm absolutely crap at Mortal Kombat, by the way. So I'm just going to go there to get knocked out in the first round and buy some pizza.
Housekeeping.
A very short housekeeping this week for obvious reasons, and no news and briefs again for obvious reasons. I'd like to welcome on 2 new patrons, so thank you very much for Fair Delane for signing up, and thank you also to LGR. I think that was Clint signing on to say that he still has faith in us with Neil leaving. So thank you very much, Clint. That really touched me.
Was it Clint signing on because I'm leaving? Is that what's happened here?
He clearly didn't know I was coming.
I hear you, Clint. I see what you're saying.
So thank you very much.
Clint.
If anyone wants to become a patron, then go to patreon.com/thisweekinretro, and we will welcome you on board as an official twirler. Lots of amazing responses to the 3D thing that Neil covered last week. Broadly, like us, we don't agree with the premise of the video, but it was very enjoyable to watch, and I think it's got lots of fascinating responses. But since it's the question of the week, we'll speak later about it, where Chris will tell us what the official one is.
The first ever 3D video game. You heard it here first from Chris. Later.
3D Monster Maze. Oh.
Until now, you needed to be at a desktop machine to use Windows. I mean, apart from laptops and handhelds and mobile phones and all the other ways, but you couldn't just leave the house and take Windows with you, except for the myriad of ways that you could. But if we put those to one side, there's a huge gaping hole in our world that's now finally been filled. I'm, of course, talking about what happens when all of us leave the house with something that we obviously can't go without, our Nintendo Game Boys. Now, I never had one, but my brother did, and I love playing Tetris on it. Did you ever have a Game Boy, guys?
I didn't
have one.
Own one. I had access to one through friends, but yeah, that got my fix. That was enough.
Yeah.
Apparently, there were other games other than Tetris, but I don't know that I ever saw them.
Super Mario Brothers, I think, or Super Mario World, or Super Mario Land. One of them. Happy Coding will correct me, he always does. On this, he's at least twice he told me I got it wrong.
Today.
I know he listens. I'm just saying hello to Alan.
Dave. What's he done?
Super Mario something on it. World's Land Brothers.
World.
Super Mario World.
Yeah.
Is that what it was?
World.
That would have been
World.
my last guess.
World.
Last guess. Okay. Super Mario World. World. Super Mario World. The reason we're talking about it this week is a submission from STMat22 from a Time Extension article. Ruben Retro has created Windows 3.1 for Game Boys. Now, I don't know about you, but I always thought, what's this little green LCD handheld? What it needs is a GUI. It needs an operating system with built-in Minesweeper, and that's what we've got. Sadly, though, of course, and this is no real surprise, it is not a full implementation of Microsoft Windows. The Game Boy was released in 1989 and Windows 3.1 in 1992. The Game Boy is an 8-bit machine, although a relatively powerful 8-bit machine.
So is this running on top of DOS, Dave?
Yes. Running on top of DOS, yeah. Running DOS in the background. Let's say that. It's running DOS in the background as well. Windows 3.1 requires a 16-bit CPU. That's the only thing stopping it. It's actually a creation in a games-making tool called GB Studio, usually made for making games, but it does have some cool stuff in it. It's got Minesweeper, and what Windows 3 could be complete without Minesweeper. It's got Media Player, which plays chiptunes, and it has Paint, which is compatible with the Game Boy printer. So you could go into Windows 3.1, and you could draw a picture and print it out.
I always remember the Media Player was like a stack system. Is it that style of one on the Game Boy?
I don't know. I haven't looked into this story enough to say.
Like the WAV player where you just have the little green line in the middle.
I don't know. I don't know if it's got visualizations or not. Milk Drop. The creator decided to make a physical package which sold out instantly, and then did a second run which has sold out instantly. Of course, it's an entirely frivolous... oh dear.
Easy for you to say, Dave.
I'll put my teeth back in. This is, of course, an entirely frivolous thing. Entirely done for fun. But I think it's fantastic, creative, and brilliant. What do you think, guys? Neil?
I love it. I love this kind of thing in general. I was talking to a chap recently who's very kindly offered us a permanent loan of the only known Conix multi-system development kit in the world to display in the museum and make a video on. Richard's very excited.
Yeah.
And I jokingly suggested about this that Jason in the Dev Den should make the only commercial release for the Conix multi-system, unless I've got a feeling something might have already been done because there's the emulator out there. But anyway, let's perhaps for the sake of this argument pretend it hasn't. And Jason could produce the only commercial game for the Conix multi-system. And we laughed, and I said it jokingly. But actually, when you think about it, people would be mad enough to put that kind of thing on their shelves if it was packaged nicely. You could say you have a complete library for a system, the Conix multi-system. You could proudly show it off, one of one games. And frivolous and fun is the word for it. And people love that. So, I'm totally not surprised that a funny little Windows simulator selling on the Game Boy is a success. I would just say, can we have Workbench next, please? Is it quite a good experience on the Game Boy, or does it brick it at any point?
Chris?
I don't know. I haven't tried it. But I like the look of it. It's a nice bit of fun, and it shows you what a Game Boy can do. I know it's not really being Windows; it's pretending to be Windows. But it does make me think about how back then we, not necessarily as kids, but you get a little bit older, so a little bit later on the timeline, and we did want to do as much as our computers could do in our pocket, which is what brings us to the modern day with our mobile phones, our smartphones, and all of that kind of thing. So it sort of reminds me a little bit when you think about how Windows would run on a Game Boy. About the early PDAs like the Palm Pilot, the monochrome screens on those. They came much later, around 96, I think it was. So I guess the closest we got to that would be the Atari Portfolio, do you think, in terms of a fully operational pocket computer with a monochrome screen, 1989?
Yeah, the Apple, what's the Apple one called? The Apple, come on, the little Apple one.
I know the one you're thinking, yeah. The one nobody talks about because nobody ever used
The
it.
Apple Newton. You had the
That's
Apple
the one.
Newton. And I think just a week before that, Amstrad brought out one, didn't they? So yeah, but yeah, the Atari one obviously made famous by Terminator 2. But these were all good, and then you did have Windows. What was it called? Windows Embedded, Windows. It was later,
Windows CE.
CE and Windows
Mobile,
Palm
Windows
and
CE. Windows CE, which really tried to shoehorn the full Windows experience into these devices, and actually things like Palm Pilot and the Newton and those specifically developed operating systems for those devices, I felt worked a lot better. But Windows CE, you could run a Game Boy emulator on it, couldn't you? If you really wanted. So you could run a Game Boy emulators on a Windows CE device to run the Windows ROM, Game Boy ROM, couldn't you?
I think we could cause a paradox if we do that.
Link in the show notes. Unfortunately, they are sold out on Etsy. But you can click on the Etsy link and have a look at what it looks like. It looks fantastic. Hopefully, more will be made for people that want this cool little thing on their shelf. Thank you for submitting it to the subreddit. And if you do want to submit a story to the subreddit for us to cover, then go to reddit.com/r/thisweekinretro.
Time now for our community question of the week. And coming back to what we mentioned before story 3, what, in your opinion and by your own definition, was the first 3D video game and why? What took us into the third dimension? 35 responses. Are we out of contest mode, Dave?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so top answer. What was the first 3D video game? Jeff Mendoza, hiya Jeff, says Virtua Racing. Controversial. That's got to be what, 1992? When did that
I'm going to say, no answer here is controversial. It's all subjective opinion. Every single person here is right.
You're right. I've looked it up, and it was 1992. Seeing as I get to use my own definition, he says it's the first 3D poly. I can't say the word.
Polly want a cracker.
Polygonal?
Polygonal game I can think of that was worth playing back then, and still worth playing now. I know of 5 versions of it, all of which differ in some way. The best thing about it is that it uses the available technology to make a good game rather than trying to do the next big thing poorly. It used flat shaded polygons. It didn't try to do texture mapped polygons. It was several years before computing was cheap enough to do texture mapping properly. Arcade, Mega Drive, 32X, Saturn, Switch are the 5 versions he mentions. And actually, if you've ever played Virtua Racing on the Mega Drive or the 32X, the Saturn and Switch are probably fine. Try out the arcade version because you can't beat the smoothness of that original game and the style of those polygons. And it was such a style that it does inspire retro games in the present day to try and mimic that untextured style of racing game. It looked amazing. We had a sitting cabinet at my local arcade, and that was a great thing to play. I must say, it didn't get a look in as soon as Sega Rally came around and Ridge Racer. That was sort of the next level of Racer. Virtua Racing was very cool. I was far more interested in Virtua Racing than I was Virtua Fighter.
Yeah.
Played both, but I agree. Yeah.
Lord Borak 316 says Battlezone had 3D graphics, but moving seemed more 2.5 because you do move in a flat plane. I remember seeing F18 on Amiga and thinking this looks 3D. Polygon games for me, even though their wireframe had 3D depth and movement. Flying down the Death Star trench in Star Wars, the imagination gap filled in the polygons for me. Same with Elite. And I think Lord Borak has hit on the real point of this. It's the first 3D game is the one where your imagination gap successfully fills in the gap. Your imagination fills in the gap and turns it into your head 3D. And I think that's the theme for all of these. I think that's the answer to these. There you go. Everyone's happy. No arguments anymore.
It makes you feel
World
immersed.
peace.
Yeah.
Makes you
feel immersed.
I like the next answer. Go on, Chris.
The Sheepy Tina answer. The first 3D game was Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, a genre-defining title which wowed gamers all the way back in 2025.
This is a callback.
Absolutely brilliant.
The most influential games of all time story we did. And a 2025 game was in there. Well done.
Nice.
Well done, Tina. Chris, do you want to pick another one?
Well, funnily enough, look, the joke answer I gave earlier in the show was the 3D Monster Maze. So Pack Rare 5146 has said first home computer 3D Monster Maze 1981. And the first arcade he's flagged as Battlezone in 1980. Both fine choices.
Yeah.
Fisket's got an interesting one that I've never predicted. Uridium on the C64. Now, Uridium on the C64 is it's a shooter, and it's a fast shooter, and there is height in it, and you go this way and that. And the reason why I struggled with Uridium, and I'm rubbish at it, is because I could never get the height right.
But then you've also got Zaxxon, and that really does bring in the height, because you have to actually control the height.
Well,
enjoy
over those walls.
Yeah.
Is isometric a form of 3D? Well, if you want to take that argument to the nth degree, Dana the Alf says, hear me out, Colossal Cave Adventure from 1976. Yes, it's a text adventure, but that just means that all the graphical rendering it occurs within the external peripheral, that is your brain, rather than on the screen. Your input options are limited, of course, but you ultimately explore a fully three-dimensional virtual space. Is exploring a virtual 3D space not a 3D game? As the earliest text adventure, it stands to reason that it must be the first 3D game, assuming your criteria for 3D game is a game which involves navigating a three-dimensional space. And there's a reply to that. Who's the reply from there, Dave?
Happy Coding. Happy Coding agrees, and he's right to agree. Dana the Elf is right in this. I mean, by the definition I just gave of where your imagination gap fills it, then that's what it does with Colossal Cave. And for people who don't know, Colossal Cave Adventure is based in a real, actual, physical cave in America. Someone mapped it out and turned it into a game, and then someone else turned it into a treasure hunting text adventure.
And there you go. That is the definitive answer. The first ever 3D video game is a text adventure. I think it's a good job I'm not coming back next week to face those comments.
I have decided on what the question of the week is for next week.
Go ahead.
And it's just a simple one. What's next for This Week in Retro? I won't coach you in your answer. Go ahead and fill out what you think is next for us. And we will read that and probably not do it. I do want to say, as it was in the beginning, so it shall be at the end. And Neil is dressed in the same outfit that he wore for his first appearance on this, deliberately. He's dressed in the first outfit he wore for this. Thank you for doing that, Neil. Neil, thank you so much for all the time you put into this. I'm going to get emotional again now. Thank you so much for speaking to me every week. You will come back on. You will come back on when you get things to shill. You will come back on when we invite you back on. You will not become a stranger. It's been wonderful. The outpouring of grief from our viewers in the past few days has been incredible. But also, I want to thank them for their all being positive, apart from one clown. They're all been who said, this is the last episode I'm watching. It's rubbish without Neil. Everyone has been so positive. So thank you very much. Next week, we will be back. We will be back without Neil. We'll be back with Chris if he shows up in time. And we'll be back with Jason, who will be bleary-eyed first thing in the morning, like Boat was. Thank you to Boat for coming on. Sorry you couldn't make the whole episode, Boat. His connection died, and hopefully the data has saved. But we will be with you next week. And Neil, thank you, and thanks for all the Salmon Max.
Thank you, Dave. And yeah, thank you for all the really lovely comments, not just this week, but over the last 4 years. You know, John and I didn't start this podcast with any kind of goal or motive in mind, and to think that it's got to 10,000 subscribers on YouTube and on, you know, the subscribers on all the other channels that you listen to it through is quite phenomenal, and it's testament to all the hard work that everyone puts in.
Especially Duncan.
Not least Duncan.
Duncan this week will have a nightmare.
And the way that Duncan has sort of shaped the format of the show, means that the show can go on seamlessly. When Chris went, when John went, and now as I'm moving on, things will just carry on seamlessly. You won't notice any difference, and there's going to be a great dynamic next week with Jason and Chris and Dave. So enjoy it. Chris, if you need anything, and any ways to poke the bear, to poke Dave each week, just let me know if you need any tips on how to.
I just need the right time zone. That's all I need
to help. And I'm going to be there listening along with everyone else. I'm off to sign up to be a patron now, and I will be contributing in the subreddit as well. And I'm really looking forward to the future of This Week in Retro and my Monday morning lie-in. So thank you, guys. It's been great working with you all.
Thanks, Neil.
Thanks, Neil.
Should we wave?
Yeah, no. It's a very sad wave.
They're waving.
They're crying.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This Week in Retro was presented by Neil from the Retro Collective and Dave. It was produced by me, Duncan Styles. The podcast version of the show is available through your favourite podcaster, including Apple Podcast and Spotify. And the video version is available on the This Week in Retro YouTube channel.
Join our community subreddit at r/This Week in Retro to suggest and vote on the stories we cover on the show. If you watch This Week in Retro on YouTube, please give us a like and subscribe to help us reach new viewers.
If you enjoy our show and would like to support it, then please check out the link to our Patreon page in the show notes or description. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time for more up-to-date news for out-of-date tech.